everyone, it's Maddie
and V, and welcome to our second reading diary.
Thought we'd come check out the YA section of WH Smith, and they do have a few interesting things here.
Namely, All These Beautiful Strangers, which has a gorgeous front cover and an interesting spine, but not a very, well, interesting in pages, not a great spine. It shows the ugly colours. They have all the new Frances Hardindge editions, and I think they're really pretty. I like the little jewelled beetle on this one.
This is about two best friends, and one of them is going on tour with her country band, and it's like a road trip between friends, and then a boy comes on the scene as Lila's opening act. And then they also have this one that was at WH Smith on the buy one get one half price table. Here it is. Let's get them. And last night I read around 100 pages of All These Beautiful Strangers by Elizabeth Kleforth, which is a really difficult surname to pronounce, and I am enjoying it, although it definitely has a different vibe from normal YA contemporary. It feels a lot more adult and kind of literary. That might just be because the style flips between the main character of Charlotte and then her parents from the past, as it's all about her mother's disappearance, so you do get a look into the minds of everybody involved. But it's also a book about Gossip Girl / Pretty Little Liars type of characters that are very, very well off, rich, entitled, which aren't the best, so I'm really looking forward to continue reading and see the hidden depths beneath those people with their shiny veneers.
Last night I couldn't resist picking up Arsenic for tea, the second in the Murder Most Unladylike series, because it really took me by surprise how much I adore the writing and the characters. I read 60 pages last night and I finished the rest of it before 11 this morning. I was so addicted, I just couldn't put it down. Maddie says that this is actually her least favourite in the series, although she still loves all of them, but it's just probably the least exciting for her. So I went in with low expectations, and I think that turned out really well because I loved the atmosphere. It reminded me a lot of the Agatha Christie play Mousetrap, because it's set inside a house where someone is murdered and there's a storm, so they can't really connect to the outside world. It makes everything very claustrophobic. I love the homely setting, and I think you can really see how Daisy and Hazel are learning to question everything rather than just trusting their instincts about the person, because they can be wrong. I'm going to give this one 4 stars. I honestly don't think any of these books could deserve less than that. And it's First Class Murder up next, which is Maddie's favourite, and I love a good train mystery too. It's been 30 degrees outside for quite a few days now, which has stopped Maddie and I from spending too much time reading outside, but temperatures have finally dropped to around 23 and 24, so it's perfect reading outside weather, and that's exactly what we're going to make the most of now. I've decided to start my YALC preparation reading with Truly Madly Awkward by Beth Jarrett. I absolutely love the first book in the series, and it's one I recently read, so I do want to binge the series back to back. Literally, Bee caught me when I was only 3 pages through, and it's a 450 page book, so I'm hoping I could just fly through this one and I'll be laughing a lot along the way. I'm even letting my nails chip in solidarity with the main character. So Maddie and I are heading outside because it's super lovely. We've just been in a really nice rut of good weather, and I'll be reading The Fallen Children. I'm about 80 pages until the end, and I'm really excited for the denouement because I think something has to come to a head with the supernatural alien vibes. Either they all die or, I don't know, world ends. It's one or the other. There's been a slight mystery thread. Something similar to what is happening now in Midwich happened in Cornwall somewhere, so I think maybe our main character Keisha might try and follow that lead, but honestly we're so close to the end that would have to wrap up super quickly, so I don't know how I'd feel about that at this point. We're sat in our absolute favourite spot in our garden for reading, just under the bamboo, because the light is super dappled, so you don't actually need your sunglasses. What are you reading? I'm reading Sunflowers in February. It's kind of like The Lovely Bones in that a girl wakes up dead and is trying to convince her brother that she's still around. I just finished Sunflowers in February, and I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. It took a really odd turn of Lily, who was the girl that died, stepping into her brother Ben's body and living as him for a couple of weeks in order to tick things off of her bucket list. And the family very easily believe that it's Lily in her brother's body, so there's no real tension there. That did happen in The Lovely Bones as well, and I did enjoy that section, but I just felt like this was not doing as much with the concept as other books I've read that are like it. Like, Lily knows the identity of her killer, and you get to see the guilt of the killer and how it's affecting them. So overall, I think it was just slightly underbaked. I'm not sure which one of these books I should pick to read next.
maybe this one.
I picked up A Skinful of Shadows by Frances Hardindge, and it's taken me a couple of days to formulate my thoughts on this one because when I started reading it, the first 50 pages really didn't grab me. I find the style was so different from anything I'd read before that it tripped me up, but then by the 150 page mark, I was just completely sucked in, and that was something I really wasn't expecting. So the main character, Makepeace, is uprooted from her home when her mother dies, and she witnesses a traumatic event of a bear being tortured, and this bear's ghost goes into her body and she can hold on to it. Then she's taken in by some distant relatives who have a secret past that they're maybe all capable of holding ghosts inside them, and the ghosts are controlling them. Throughout the book, Makepeace gets more and more ghosts in her head, and that becomes really interesting as they communicate with each other and as she tries to keep that a secret, because if people find out that she has this bear inside her, then things will go terribly wrong. Even though I finished it quite a while ago, it's one that I just can't stop thinking about because the premise was just so intriguing and I really enjoyed the way it unfolded. It also felt like I was reading a modern Victorian classic, but if that sounds dense and boring to you, then this is the complete opposite. It really engaged me by the end, and it's always nice to find books that surprise you like that. This is just an example of when it's good to endeavour with a book that you're struggling with.
Once again, Maddie and I have the delight of getting to read outside. I'm reading Everless by Sara Holland.
And I'm reading In Your Light by Annalie Grainger. I am 130 pages through, and I'm also reading Spare and Found Parts by Sarah Maria Griffin, and I'm halfway through this one.
I'm 270 pages through this one, and interestingly enough, the fantasy world building, the magical / life system is identical to In Time, which is a Justin Timberlake and Amanda Seyfried movie that Maddie and I absolutely adore. The conflict of that with people dying because they don't have enough time and some people having an excess of time is only really coming to the forefront now, and I'm very excited to see where this series is going to continue. It's a very gentle fantasy read for me. I really love the setting of Everless as well. It's a palace-based thing and there are different ranks, so it's a little Downton Abbey too.
I just finished Everless and I'm gonna give it 5 stars. I thought it was fantastic. The reveals towards the end were incredible. I didn't see them coming at all, and I loved how all the folklore and the stories and the little snippets and whispers of things that we got at the very beginning of the book all came together, and I'm just so thrilled with the ending of this book. It took risks, it did things I wasn't expecting, and I can't wait to read the sequel now. The next book I'm going to read is Flawed by a whole bunch of UKYA authors. Maddie has already read it and expressed her thoughts in one of our previous reading diaries. I don't really know what to expect. I'm going to go in with low expectations based on what she's told me, and hopefully I can get through it quite quickly.
I just finished In Your Light, and this is all about Lil, whose older sister Mella went missing 4 months ago. And then Lil finds a girl called Alice washed up in a woods somewhere, and Alice is able to reveal some things about the kind of cult / religion she's part of and how Mella might be trapped there. This was a really fascinating story. I think cults will always interest me whenever they come up as a buzzword in books like this. And I particularly liked the sections that were told from the perspective of somebody in that cult, but I really liked the way that the story didn't really villainize the cult too much. It was still obviously a bad thing, but there was never too much judgment placed on the people that genuinely believed that happened. I thought it was really concise, and I think I'm going to give it 4 stars.
I also decided to pick up a cult-based book, and that is After the Fire by Will Hill, which recently won the YA Book Prize. This has my favourite narrative architecture, which is now and then. In the present, we're in a facility that our main character, Moonbeam, has been placed in after the fire in her home cult town, and she is telling a psychologist and also a police officer about the events that occurred. It's alternating, and I have to say I loved whenever we went into the backstory of the cult, because the suspense and the tension of the build-up towards the arrival of the trigger that sets all of these things in motion, and then of course the exploration into how things went wrong, was absolutely incredible. I couldn't put it down. My only critique would be that it went on slightly too long. I was anticipating answers that were a lot worse than what was actually the case. So in some ways it felt anticlimactic, but at the same time it was super satisfying. After the Fire is dark and atmospheric and gritty. If you haven't read it already, then I would make sure you put it to the top of your TBR.
Because I had such a good time with I've Lost My Way, I decided to pick up I Was Here by Gayle Foreman. And this is all about Cody, whose best friend Meg committed suicide, and so she's going back to where Meg went to college to try and retrace her steps and figure out what happened. Although it's quite a short book, this is one that's really slow paced, and normally that's something that I don't like, but I really appreciated it in this book because you got to linger in the emotions of the characters. Cody is getting to know Meg in a way that she never did before. She's seeing a completely new side to her as she sees where she's living and who her friends are and what potential relationships she had in the past. And in the end, it's not really a story of discovering what happened to Meg, but really who Cody is. You learn a lot about her character, even though Meg is often the focus. Overall, this book is quite tragic, but somehow manages to keep some hope alive, and is generally about healing. So if that sounds interesting to you, then I definitely pick this up, and it seems like a trademark of Gayle Foreman. So now I'm really interested in reading more of her backlist, including If I Stay, because I know that's the big one.
Today we're hosting a Twitter sprint on the BookTubeAthon.
So we're 5 minutes away from beginning, and we've chosen the books that we're going to try and read. As normally it's disastrous for us in terms of page count because we're always too busy looking at the Twitter.
Both chosen graphic novels. I've gone with Volume 7 of Giant Days.
And I'm going with Volume 2 of Jonesy. The first tweet of the day has just gone live. Let's go! I'm so ready, but also a little bit nervous just because it's been so long since we've done this.
Find a GIF now. You've got 1 minute to find a GIF for the start of our sprint.
It was Maddie's idea to have people describe their book covers and get others to guess in the replies, and that has been so engaging. We've had like seriously 100 notifications just from it, so that's really, really cool.
A few of them are really cryptic, and it's funny how some of them like could definitely be other books.
We've just announced the contest to win a tote bag, and we said you had to name your favourite literary duo, and some people are translating that as romance and others friendship. Either is completely fine, and I'm really pleased that we're kind of creating this thing on the BookTubeAthon where you could potentially go back to our tweets and then still engage with them.
Yeah.
We have another game planned for slightly later, so that's going to be fun. Otherwise, we've only got 45 minutes left of our Twitter takeover.
And that's it, we've tweeted our last thing. We're only 3 minutes away from our sprint officially being over.
We've probably done the least amount of reading we've ever done whilst sprinting, which isn't that much to begin with anyway, but we've hit an all-time low.
But we've had so much fun this year because we did lots of challenges that were interactive, and it was really great seeing people respond to each other, because in previous years we've just had it where people kind of submit their favourite book spine or something like that that isn't very engaging. So we've loved our time this year. Thank you so much to Ariel Bissett for inviting us to host again. Probably my favourite part of hosting the BookTubeAthon sprint is going back to our own account and seeing 99 plus notifications.
The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson. We actually have this on our Kindles and we've had it for years but never got around to reading it, so hopefully a physical copy will encourage us to do so. Then we have A World Between Us by Lydia Sison, and I picked this up mostly because of the cover. The art style is absolutely gorgeous, and then the back is really cool too. This is set in World War One, and from the ambulance it might be about a female ambulance driver, and I did a internship on World War One last year, so I read letters from the time, so I'm actually really excited to read this one. And finally, The Amateurs by Sarah Shepherd. This is one of Maddie's favourite books from last year or 2 years ago, and she was meaning to get it used to new, and since this price is practically the same, we'll get it here.
Thank you everyone so much for watching. We make bookish videos every week, so subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MaddieMV, and we'll see you next time.